Welcome to Trustee Talk. I'm Dick Murgatroyd. Thank you for joining us. Our guest today is the president of the Anderson Township Board of Trustees, Russ Jackson. Russ, good to see you.
You too, Dick, as always.
Always good to see you.
Yes.
And
Is there snow on the ground yet?
I know. Well, no, I don't. I hope not. The way the year is going, though, it won't be long.
That's right.
I feel it will be. Today, I know we want to talk a little bit more. We've talked in the past a little bit about TIF, which is the tax increment of financing. But I think we're going to spend some more time talking a little bit about that today, what it is, and how that impacts Anderson Township and what it makes it possible for us to do here in Anderson Township through that. So let's start out, I guess, and talk a little bit about TIF. Where does that money come from? I guess who pays into TIF?
Well, first, let me back up just a hair to talk about why it even exists. Back for many years, as Anderson Township and other townships were improving, people paid their taxes into the county, but they never felt they were getting a fair return on the money that they were paying in. And as our property values increased disproportionately to everybody else's, it was even more noticeable. So somebody came up with the brilliant idea of tax increment financing. Not a tax, didn't change any taxes. Taxes didn't go up. If it was eliminated today, taxes wouldn't go down. It simply said, hey, we're going to take a little bit off the top of the money that the taxpayer pays and give it to Anderson Township specifically for the purpose of capital improvements. And with that, then you would reinvest it in the community and continue to grow. It really was that simple. The idea was that you would designate any commercial, industrial, or undeveloped property under the TIF program, and we did everything that was commercial, industrial, or undeveloped at that time. Well, part of that property was that undeveloped land. Most of it now has become residential. So only those people who bought property that had previously been designated undeveloped actually pay into the TIF. And all it is a designation on the tax bill, hard to see because the tax bills are overloaded and the county auditor can't figure out a way. If he had a computer system that was less than 50 years old, he could probably do it, but they haven't gotten that far. But it's designated on there. Probably less than 10%, maybe 7 or 8% of all the residents in Anderson actually have anything to do with TIF. So when they look at their tax bill, if it doesn't say anything, a TIF designation, none of their money goes to it.
So it only applies to properties that were designated ahead of time
under that program.
Under that underdeveloped.
Right. And there are usually these bigger, some of the bigger subdivisions, but definitely the newer residential areas. The tricky part of it was the fact that we had agreed, and rightfully so, that we would hold the school district harmless, meaning that their revenues would not change. Unfortunately, because the way the auditor collects the money, he has to give us their portion of the money, and then we have to give it back to the school districts. Okay. That gets a little time-consuming, convoluted, and that sort of thing. But no impact on their revenues whatsoever. For us, it allowed us to set this money aside for very specific purposes under the terms of what was at that time 25-year, a 30-year TIF program. So that TIF will expire in barely 10 years.
Oh, okay. So it is set up for a particular period of time.
Yes.
That money is available.
Yep.
Then what happens then is that then you do.
It just goes away.
It goes away.
Yeah. And we keep whatever we have left over, and instead of coming to us, that money will go to the county. Most of it to the county.
Yeah.
There's always a big fight because the counties don't like it.
No, of course not.
They didn't like it because it took monies away from their budgets. But we have tried to effectively use it to invest it in the community the way it was was designated.
Well, plus it creates a greater base for your community, which in the end, I would think the county would still benefit from in the long run if
They do.
if
Sure.
they're willing to be patient.
But it all surrounds property
Yeah.
values. And so, if you have improvements and enhancements and all of that sort of thing, property values ultimately go up, revenues go up, TIF goes up, counties' coffers get fuller. So it's very much a win-win situation.
So those that are in the TIF districts, they're going to be paying into TIF for that 30-year window.
Right.
And
That's
then
correct.
at the end of the 30 years, when it goes away, then they're no longer paying it either.
Well,
I mean,
they're gonna pay the same amount of
They
tax.
pay the same amount of
It's
money,
just
but
going
it just
to
goes to the county.
Most of it to the
does
county.
not go into
Yes.
a TIF. Okay.
Right.
Now,
But-
do you, I guess, then can you establish new districts?
Well, you can, yes.
when you
The
want to?
only thing about new districts, the first place, the one that we implemented was a township-wide TIF. So we had hundreds of parcels that were TIFed. They changed the rules and still allow for TIFs, but they're for designated areas. For example, we did a re-TIFing of the riverfront parcels because that will extend it out another 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But under the new program, that money must be used for the benefit of the district from which the money came.
okay.
Now, that doesn't mean it has to be, for example, you could build a firehouse that would enhance their property and didn't have to be on that property.
Yeah.
But that's the new program. So the rules are somewhat different. But you can do
The
it.
current one then that you're under now, that was township-wide, so that
Township-wide.
money could be spent in
Any place in
anywhere in the
yes.
township.
As long as it was spent for one of the purposes that had been delineated in the original legislation.
What are some of the things that?
Well, capital improvements, you could build buildings, you could repair roads, you could buy fire trucks, you could buy equipment, basically capital expenditures.
Okay.
Not, the one thing you couldn't do with it is use it for operating money.
Right.
So that was the whole idea.
Yeah.
So that you would reinvest it, and that's what we've done. We've not tried not to sit on it. We tried to use it wisely. Part of by buying, I'll give you an example, by buying equipment, fire equipment, police equipment, it allows then those entities to better utilize their revenues because they didn't have
Right.
to set aside money out of their revenue, direct revenues, to buy capital goods. So a lot of benefits to it.
Well, and otherwise, you really wouldn't have a source to be able to do those kind of things.
No, and oddly enough, under the convoluted state laws regarding accounting for townships, you can't even have reserve accounts
At all.
at all. Yes.
Wow.
Well, so if you want to reserve something, you actually have to have a designation for it, and then I guess do away with it later. It's
Yeah.
really weird. So you can't have a rainy day fund. You know
Wow,
how
my
so many
gosh.
people have rainy
Yeah.
day funds?
Yeah.
Can't do that. So kind of
Interesting.
weird, but
Yeah. So another if you set aside money for it has to be set aside for a specific
for a
project.
specific purpose.
And then you
That's
have to, do you have to spend that within a certain period of time?
Well, yeah, I don't know what the accounting requirement is, but I guess we've had money set aside. For example, actually, it's not set aside; it's just earmarked an amount in the budget for the next year for the access road down at the Encore project to connect Broadwell with 32, and it's been 10 years that we've had that money set aside, if you will, for that project, or at least for our portion of it. So I guess you could spend it or not spend it. One of the more interesting aspects of all of this is that at the end of the 30 years, whatever's left goes back into your general fund anyway.
Into your general fund?
Yes.
So that money does stay
If we had any left
in
over.
the township.
But the more unique aspect of it was that I was able to get Tom Brinkman, who was our state rep at the time, to get the law modified that said that besides capital expenditure, if an emergency was declared, you could borrow from that TIF fund to support your safety, fire and safety. An emergency provision, if you would. We've never had to use it, but what that would mean that if you were in a situation where you couldn't, you were going to have to go out for a levy if you couldn't do it, then we now can borrow from it. And at the end of the 30 years, you have to pay yourself back, but that's...
so you would have to pay money back into the TIF.
Yeah,
And
just
to
to
make
take
up
from
for it,
here
yeah.
to there.
Yeah.
So,
But still,
but it was really important because, as I've told you before, we've gone 14 years now with one tax levy, and you know, if we could get away with 20, that would be pretty good. There aren't too many people that go 20 years without a tax levy
No.
and still have a AAA
no,
Moody's
you
rating.
got that
So
right.
we
You got that right. That makes a big difference.
must
You
be
know,
doing
that's-
something right.
Yeah, I mean, and you emphasize again, I guess, that the school districts are not impacted.
Not in any way,
At
shape,
all.
or
I mean, they're-
form. Although that's what triggered the reason why we started talking about this topic to begin with, is that a couple people were concerned and asked a couple of our trustees or new trustees about the fact that they thought that there was additional monies that they were paying to the school district on their tax bill under the TIF program. And all it was is the reimbursement that they were entitled to
Right.
to begin with.
Which was going
So-
back to the school districts
Right.
anyway. Yeah.
And since they are very much, as we are, dependent on property values, the more we are able to protect and enhance property values, the more it benefits them.
Absolutely.
Although they might tell you, and that's not my field of expertise, but they would probably tell you that they have to be very careful because with this really strange program that the state of Ohio has for school funding, they have to be careful about getting too much money,
Well, yeah.
or they lose funds from the state.
From the state. Yeah.
Weird, but
Yeah.
whoever creates some of these things, most interesting this past week, you know, we've talked about these JEDs and JEDZs. That they passed, the governor signed just last week, legislation to outlaw the JEDZs, the JEDZs, that they just implemented like 2 years ago. They really probably shouldn't have implemented it, but basically what it did, it allowed communities, and I'll give you an example with Sycamore Township, who has the Kenwood Town Center in the heart of their business community. They were able to designate that as a JEDZ, a zone, and start collecting payroll taxes from
Yeah.
those people. In our case, you know, we've never really had any interest in something like that. First, because we didn't need a tax grab, and secondly, so many of our businesses came here because we didn't have a payroll tax, and it certainly wouldn't be the right thing to do. Then wait till they get here and then
No.
implement the tax.
No,
But
no.
but another one of those convoluted things that the legislature should never have passed to begin with.
No.
And then all of a sudden, everybody was jumping on board, and these. So what? What I have said all along is, hey, if the legislature wants to give townships the option for its voters to implement a payroll tax, hey, that's fine.
Sure.
But it should be simple, clear cut across the board,
Absolutely.
not this gerrymandering
No.
game playing that.
No, because I think that just makes it even worse. I think if you want to do it, you're going to do it do it the right way, and,
Right.
and people know what they're getting themselves
And
into.
if the taxpayers want to do it and vote on it, but the problem with the JED zone is the taxpayers had no voice in the matter. Trustees could implement it and then put it on the ballot, but it sounded so simple. Say, hey, yeah, we're going to vote for this, and we're going to
Yeah.
collect these billions of dollars from the Kenwood Town Center.
Yeah.
Not particularly comfortable with that.
No.
With that concept. That's
Not it is a but they always are looking for ways to kind of camouflage a tax.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know the
won't
simple
call a tax
solution
a
on
tax.
simple solution on a tax is spend less.
Yes, that's
but
very simple.
I guess that concept just doesn't.
Well, no. Now, you're
doesn't
way off
sell in
base, Russ.
Omaha. Doesn't sell in Omaha.
Does not sell at all. You're way off base here, but it's a good thought.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So are you anticipating that perhaps there will be? You had 6 more years on this TIF now.
10.
Is it 10 more years.
Right.
So are you anticipating adding any new TIFs?
No, we did the one down at the riverfront because the property values, particularly after they tore the old river down, was at a absolute low,
Yeah.
as low as it could possibly be. So the timing was good for that particular function. But again, the difference being is that money will only be spent on that area. So we did the entertainment area and with specific properties. But that will be good for them because then we can spend dollars for enhancement without taking them away from all the other taxpayers
right.
in the township.
Right.
That they essentially over time would be paying for their own improvements. So that's a good thing.
Which is a good thing. Yeah, and I think as you look at that district, the kind of improvements that money could be used for, I guess, would be a lot of it's just infrastructure as far as
infrastructure and equipment. One of the biggest things that we encountered was the fact that while we've had no crime problems or fire problems or anything, sheer volume of people has increased the cost to serve that area. You know, when you have thousands and thousands of people that weren't there before, you're going to need emergency services and you're going to need police services and that sort of thing. So, but this will allow us to really enhance the whole area down there, even more so than what they are doing on their own.
Which they're doing a lot.
And they're doing,
yeah, they really are.
Yeah, when you spend $300 million on a project, you ought to know what you're doing.
Yes, you should.
I think they do.
But it's turned out to be an excellent project.
Oh, it is.
For you.
And they spend so much time planning, and it's really tough because you can't always anticipate every negative that's going to come up. But they've done a terribly good job of minimizing the problems.
Yeah.
And,
now, and again, to emphasize that money, you can't spend it for people.
That's correct. Yes.
But you can spend it for equipment for providing services.
Yes. You could spend it on sidewalks. You could spend it on road repairs. You could spend it on lights. You could spend it on anything that could be classified as a capital expenditure. Long term rather than short term.
But more of a public capital expenditure.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So nothing that would pertain just to that.
No, because you can't technically, you technically can't spend taxpayer dollars on private property and TIF dollars, other than for demolition. You can assist in demolition. Why that's. Somebody put that in there. I don't know, but that
Probably
is
somebody
the one,
wanted to tear something.
That is the one thing. Yeah, so the one
Legislators
thing
are good about that.
say, okay, demolition. So long term, it will be good. Flood mitigation, things like that, you can spend it on. So that's the facet that we're really looking at.
And that will be good for 30 years. And
that would, I think that one's 30 years. If I
30
remember
years.
correct.
Okay. Are most of them 30 years, or do they?
Well,
vary?
the new ones, most of them, I think, are. Yeah, there aren't a whole lot that are being put in place because of the limitations. But timing is everything with a TIF. If the property is already at top of its value,
Yes.
why would you bother?
Yeah.
Because the enhancement would be minuscule percentage-wise. So the timing is the key.
Well, and with a new project like that, there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of new things that are going to be happening in that area. That are
Yes.
going to,
And we have no idea what else is going to happen in that district.
No.
We have ideas of what we'd like to happen, and we have plans to to what we would hope would happen, but you really don't know.
no.
So
No, but I mean, at least you have the ability to be there to assist in the public aspect of it as much as you possibly
Yes.
can. So that's so the people now in that particular case, then those people just in that district will actually be paying into that TIF.
only those
not
people.
the
That's
rest of the
correct. Only
township.
those people,
Yeah.
and they will be getting the benefit of
Yeah.
what they're paying. So
Was that district included in the old TIF?
it was.
So are they paying double?
No, we had to
No.
de-TIF them.
Okay, so you de-TIFed them.
De-TIF and
from
re-TIF.
the-
Yeah, that's right. Little creative accounting there. De-TIF
so-
and re-TIF.
So they're not paying double. They're
see,
paying,
what had happened was when that was TIFed, as example, when that was TIFed, River Downs was doing very well.
Yeah.
Back in the mid-'90s, they were still doing well. So the TIF level was way up here. Well, by the time these people bought them, that value was way down here. We weren't generating any TIF revenues from that property at all.
Yeah.
So zero for the last probably 8 or 9 years at least.
Wow.
So because it's all up to what the county auditor establishes as the valuation of the property. So we weren't collecting anything, so de-TIFing it didn't cost anybody anything.
Well, that's that makes sense. I think obviously, and like I said, the improvements in that area are just already paying off. I mean,
Absolutely.
big time. So
Well, you don't know how much business we're really waiting to see. Now is a great time because everything is booming and the racing season is going on, but we don't know what's going to happen in the off season. But
yeah, you're going to almost have to have a year or so just to see how
it work
how
itself
the
out.
cycle
Yes.
goes. And
But we do know that people are all of a sudden, everybody is interested in the property down there.
Yes.
That's
you hear a lot of talk about it. And a lot of people are taking advantage of it, and a lot of people. I hear lots of good things about the restaurants.
That was the whole idea here. Was it is not. I read. I don't know if you saw that New York Times had a front page story Friday, I think it was, on the fact that up in the Maryland, all the way through New Jersey area, where all these racetracks that actually had casinos were impacting state revenues because of the competition. The revenues were much lower than the state had anticipated. They're probably still making a nice profit, but the state wasn't getting the revenues. Ours is different because ours is part of the Lottery Commission, doesn't come under the auspices of the Gambling Commission. Totally different.
Yeah.
So everybody said, well, they're just waiting and they're going to put tables, having table games. Not going to happen because it's totally different.
So they're two different entities.
Yeah, ours is strictly part of the lottery. In fact, with 1,500 machines, they all communicate directly with the Lottery Commission, actually in Cleveland. So if you put a nickel in that machine, they record it up there. They have it. Totally different. It's just like the lottery ticket that you buy in the grocery store. Same idea, except it's a
machine, and you're not buying a ticket.
It's a lottery terminal. It's not a slot machine.
So they don't consider that gaming then.
Well, not in the sense of gambling. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it's
as long
part
as
of
it's,
the.
yeah. So as long as it stays in that category.
Remember why it's there in the first place was to save the horse race industry.
Right.
The horse racing industry was probably wouldn't make it another couple years
No.
in the entire state.
No, I think that Kentucky's the same way. I mean, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was to allow for the video lottery terminals to augment the racing. What has it done? It's raised the purses double what they were. The quality of the horses, the racetrack itself is absolutely beautiful. But the whole idea, the only reason it's there is to enhance racing. And that's why.
To attract people back to the tracks. Because
That's exactly right.
Most of the tracks.
So their concept is don't come here to gamble.
Right.
Come here for an entertainment experience. And that's why the restaurants are so good. I mean, they spent so much time designing, developing the restaurants, taking from their whole organization the very best chefs they had, because it's the sports bar, it's the restaurants, it's the horse racing. People can still come and bring their kids outside.
Right.
To watch the horse race, and they can still walk over and gamble at the same, or use the bet on the horses,
yeah,
I should
bet
say,
on the horses, yeah.
right there. It just has all the nice pieces, but it doesn't have the element that table games bring to casino. That's why it's not a casino.
No, it brings a whole different crowd.
Yep.
To those, and they come more for the casino than they do to come to the track. So
yes,
yeah,
it's a whole different concept. Ladies, I think their demographic is a 57-year-old woman. That's their prime market.
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah. No, do
Because
they think about it as 57-year-old guys?
Yeah, no.
I was one once. I don't know when it was, but
no, 57-year-old guys don't count because they don't sit in front of those machines.
No,
well,
that's true.
Like the ladies do.
That's true. The ladies enjoy those machines.
They spent so much time deciding on the chairs, 1,500 chairs for 1,500 machines, and they had to have it broad enough for the various sizes of the ladies. They had to have it so that it could move forward or backwards easily, so the shorter ladies could get up closer or back further. It was amazing how much time they had to spend just on those. They had to be light enough that the ladies could move it. So it's got a little handle in the back to get it to slide. Absolutely.
It's amazing.
I mean, they spent 4 months just deciding on which chairs they were going to have.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
but they knew their demographic. That's
right.
why.
And that's why they're successful.
And that's why
I've enjoyed it. It's a pleasure always to be. We're out of time as we narrow down to the end of the show. But it's been interesting. And it's always interesting because I think this whole TIF thing, I think people hear about it, but they don't really understand what it does. But if you look around Anderson Township, you all have put that to good use and turn it into
all it is.
A plus
It's
for
a
everyone.
way to not increase taxes, but make sure we get a fair share of the money that's paid to the county with the intent to reinvest it
and reinvesting it in the community.
That's the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, sir, very much. It's always good. Good to see you. We'll see you on the next go-around.
Yep.
And we thank you for joining us and sharing part of your day with us. We hope that you found this most interesting and learned a lot more about TIF and what that all means. We hope the rest of your day will be productive and pleasant. And so I hope that you'll join us again for our next Trustee Talk here on ACTV. We'll see you then.